Begin the current Daf Mesech Yoma Daf Ayin Hey. Begin on the bottom line of Ayin Dal and Beis. The Gemara continues with different teachings from Rabbi Shloimy, the theme of the previous pasuk that we had brought, and we have much agapic teachings on today's Daf. She's close as it comes to Kalzik and Cheskel, Toranet and Chaim. Appreciate you joining us for today's Daf. She's close with Ben Yehudis. Mazel Tov to Remeir Shav. This Mamash Noch Simcha Baruch Hashem. Noch Fleischig as we get. Mamash in the midst of times to do gekimmen. Baruch Hashem, it's a schus that he comes. Mamash Yom B'Layla. So some ideas we discuss in today's Daf are numerous midrashim and other teachings about the month, which we had discussed. We had mentioned the previous Daf, the pasuk of the month, because it related to that of Vayancho, the Yervecha, to define what's the inuyim of Yom Kippurim. So then the Gemara gets into many agapic discussions about the month, also about the slav that the Bnei Yisrael ate while in the Midbar. Also will be discussed. Some of the key terms and concepts are the man, which the man is that heavenly food that came from Shemayim, which was later put into a flask to remember that Oin Shalom gives us panusa. Panusa kitnish from the arbit, as we know very well over here, which the arbit is a schlechte word too. But the man came from the Oin Shalom. And Gematria is the numerical value of a word which you take the letters together that combines and creates a number. So begin the current Daf Ayin Dal and Beis, the bottom line of it. The Gemara quotes a pasuk in Mishlei, similar to the previous pasuk we just brought of the line before, how it's about what a person sees. Kiyitin b'kais einai. When a person puts his eyes on the cup, a goblet of wine, yisalach b'mishar, so he thinks he's walking in the righteous path. What does this mean? So Rabbi Rabasi, they each give an interpretation of the pasuk. Chadam one says, whoever puts his eyes on his goblet, meaning, like Rashi explains, he loves getting drunk. So arayis kulan daimas love kamisha. So all forbidden relationships are like a flat land to him, meaning it's a galachaveg. That's he suddenly gets very chum with the other gender. That's someone who gets high and intoxicated. The other one says, whoever puts his eyes in his cup, again, that's all he sees is his cup of wine. Again, that's the old school, and we have our current day types of substances. So the whole world is like a straight plane, which Rashi explains means to say that other people's monies are like, seems like it's permitted for him. So again, either it's regarding Arayis or it's regarding Gevel, but it's like a Misha, like a straight thing, nothing blocking him. That's the straight path for him to take. Another interpretation of this Rabbi Rabasi on the pasuk is the pasuk in Mishlei. Dago b'lev ish, worry in the heart of man, which Rashi explains to say is like a fear that he's worried about something, a loss that can happen, that might happen. So the pasuk tells us what should a person do for his anxiety, for his fears, for his phobias. Yashchena, let him push it down, which that is effective in its own right as a strategy to push it down. You know, it's a pushing away tactic. But Rabbi and Rasi, they give the midrashic interpretations. Chadam one says a very famous interpretation. There's two of them. Well, so one he says Yaschenu midatei. Although it's Yaschenu with a shin, but he reads it with a sin. Yaschenu midatei should be masechtas. Distract yourself. If you have a worry, go ahead and start thinking about other things. Chadam, and this is a very well-known interpretation. Yischenu la'acher. He should tell it over to other people. So the simple understanding is yes, when you could just talk it over to someone and someone else listens, you are able to process your fears and you feel calm. But Rashi says, Shemi Yisiu Eitzah. That very simply, if you say it over to someone else, you might hear some other perspective and he might share with you some counsel. So therefore that's what a person should do in these words is, oh, you know, how about this? Oh, I never thought about that. So there are two different interpretations. Again, the Gemara continues with another pasuk that the same Rabbi Rabasi is a pasuk in Yeshaya. It says, "V'nachash and the snake offer lachmai. His bread is the dust of the earth." So Rabbi Rabasi again, Chadam one says, what does it mean that the snake, his bread is the earth? That even if he eats all the delicacies in the world, he's just going to taste the taste of dirt. So that's what's saying that his bread is dirt because no matter what he eats, that's all what he tastes. Chadam, the other one says, no. Maybe when he eats all the delicacies of the world, his consciousness is not appeased, he's not settled until he eats dirt. He needs to have that the marach buying or whatever. He asked him, this is all I don't care if you give me prime rib. He needs the dust. So again, either that it all tastes like dirt to him, or that he needs dirt. That's the only thing that comes down. Which related, the Gemara brings Tanya learning on Brisa. Amr Rabbi Yisi. He says, Boy, come and see. Shalek means HaKadosh Baruch Hu means Basar Dam. How different is God from a regular human being? How so? Midas Basar Dam. What's the attribute of a flesh and blood of a human being? Is Maknes Chaveroi. If someone bothers someone else, he provokes him. So Yuri Melechai, it goes down to his life. In other words, whatever he can do, I'm going to rip this guy down. I'm going to destroy this guy. I'm going to kill him. He comes down to his life. Now, because both Anakin, that's not the way God is. How so? God had a plan for the world. He was going to make utopia. And this Nachash comes and destroys everything. The world as we were supposed to be living in the garden and just in paradise, Nachash took it down because he went and deceived Adam and Chava. So what did he do? Kilas and Nachash. So Hashem cursed the snake. And you know what the result of this curse is? If the snake goes up to the roof, his sustenance, his food is with him. Your Lamati goes down, his food is with him, because what's his food? What did God curse the snake? You're going to eat dirt. Guess what? That's everywhere. So God's very different than a human being. A human being, he'd kill him and say, I'm going to rip you, you're not going to have a panos, I'm not going to jump. God said, I'll give you everything. Which the commentaries all say that, of course, God said, I don't want anything to do with you. Go ahead, I'll give you everything. But the relationship with God is everything. But I'm saying Hashem is very different than a human being in the sense of that he actually gives him everything. So to kill us Canaan. The curse of Canaan, which was the fourth child of Ham, who was cursed at Oru Canaan. Now, what is Canaan? Who is Eved Lama? He's a slave to his brothers. So this is a curse coming from God, from Noach, who's the shliachim, that he eats whatever his master eats. He drinks whatever his master drinks. He has it very good. This slave obviously is a slave, but very different than the curse of a human being. So Dukilas Isha, God cursed the woman, and because you caused Adam to sin, and now the whole world's going to have death. So what happened? Everyone's running after the woman. So this is how different God is of the ramifications of his curses than that of a human being. So Tekilas Adama, God cursed the earth, that because they took the blood of Hevel and Ardas Adama. But Hakon is Zayin, guess what? Everyone gets sustenance from the earth, and everyone needs earth, and everyone wants a piece of land. So again, we see just how different that this came in because of the snake that we had. What does it mean? So we discussed and showed how different Hashem is from a human being. Now, pasuk in the Midbar, going back to the theme of the previous daf, which we had mentioned regarding the man, because of it said in the pasuk regarding Inui beyond Chavar, which referred to the man. And we were trying to explain that affliction means not eating and not drinking. That's why Chamish Yom Yom Kippurim. So now we go back to that theme of the pasuk by Midbar, which talks about the man, which the Yidden were complaining. He said, enough of this man already. We remember the daga that we would eat in Mitzrayim, the fish we would eat for free in Egypt. We missed that. So Rabbi Shmuel, Chadam one says dagam, it literally means to say fish. And one says arayis. It actually refers to forbidden relationships, which when they came to the midbar, they were forbidden in, because daga, Rashi explains, it also means the terminology of tashmish, of intimacy, like it says v'yidgu l'raiv. They're going to be daga l'raiv, which is being fruitful and having children, but you see that it's a reference to tashmish. So that's the machlekes about what was it they were complaining about that we missed that we had in Egypt. Either they had arayis, they were permitted in, or they had literally fish. So the Gemara explains mandam and dog, and the one that says fish, because it says that we ate in Mitzrayim. Tashmish was hasten ate, they didn't eat. So it must mean the gefilte fish that they had in Mitzrayim, we missed that. Mandam arayis, the other one that says arayis, chinam, because it says chinam, which like Rashi brings in Bamidbar, chinam means mina mitzvahs. Afraya yid. Says afraya yid, someone that doesn't keep mitzvahs. Now, says the Gemara, Madam Arayis, the one who says it means Arayis, what does he do with Neichel? What do you mean? Neichel b'mitzrayim? Says the Gemara, Lishna Alya Nakar. It's a more of a euphemism, it's a more of a refined way of saying it, but Achal could refer to Tashmish, like it says in the Pasuk in Mishlei. The Pasuk says, so too is the way of the adulterous woman. Achla, quote unquote, she eats, umachsa piha, and she wipes her mouth. You know, when you finish eating, you wipe your mouth. So too she wipes her lower mouth. V'amar, and she says, "Loi pa'alti oven," I haven't done anything wrong. She like just wipes off and says like, "Oh, nothing was done over here." Like a guy who just ate a ball, fresh the whole meal, he wipes his mouth. What's do given? What's do given? Right? So that's what it means. You see, it is a more refined way of speaking, but it could refer to attachment. Now says the Gemara Lamanda Badagim, according to one that says it means fish. So my china, we know farayis, it means like a fraya. He was like, yeah, we didn't have to keep any of these laws. But what does it mean that there was free fish? So the Gemara, they have a mice in the yeah, the fish would actually come from the ownerless plains. Because the Amamara, like the master says in Mesechta in the first paragraph of Yadachim Abayz, when the Jews would go ahead and draw water, Hashem would prepare for them that it would happen in the bucket there. They draw the water, would be these small little fish. And therefore, yeah, we're saying we missed the fish that we would have in Egypt, which obviously anyone knows if you could have the man, it's just a pretext to pick a fight with God. But that's what they were complaining about. So the Gemara says, so according to the one that says it was fish, but regarding forbidden relations, they were not breached in, and they did not engage in arayas in the time. They weren't complaining, oh, we missed the arayas. So haim nechasim, so that we could understand what it says the pasuk in shiur. Gan no'ol, a closed garden. Achaisi chala is my sister, the bride, b'chulu, b'gomer, etc. Which the pasuk says that they were a closed spring, which means there's obviously a reference to the chastity of the modesty of the Jewish people, that they did not engage in any forbidden relations. But according to the one that says that they were missing the rice they had in Egypt, so my mind chasen. So what does the pasuk say that it was a sealed spring? What do you mean? They were promiscuous. So what do you mean mind chasen? Says the Gemara, no. Mahanach da'asiron, from those which even b'nei noich, from Gentiles, are forbidden. For example, those that it says in Nun Zayin and Beis, that any erva that a Jewish court would prosecute and execute a ben noyach, so that le pritzibahu. Actually, the Jewish people, they were not breached in that. They did keep basic morality. They were crying about the additional ones. The Jewish people have much more laws of arayas than the ben noyach. So they didn't engage in incest or whatever this and that, but the other types of arayas, that they were crying over and saying, oh, we were able to have these intimate relations that we can't have anymore. So Bishlam Amanda Marai said, the Gemara continues and says, okay, we understand according to the one that says it was arayas that they were complaining about, they missed. Haim the Chassid, this is what it says the pasuk in the Midbar. It says Moshe Rabbeinu heard the people crying about their families. What does it mean? It means al iski mishpachim, not to their families, but about their families. Meaning that they weren't able to sleep with their certain family members that in Egypt they were able to. And able to have that intimacy. Now they can't have anymore because it's as forbidden as arayas in the Torah. But Ramandam and Dugam, according to one that says referring to fish, my boichel mishpachim. So then what is this crying about the family? I thought that had nothing to do with arayas that they're missing. It's all about the fish. It says, according to that man the Amar, there was both. They were complaining about the fish, and they were complaining about the arayas that they missed from Mitzrayim. Now, continuing on this regarding the man, and again about Rabami and Rabasi, so the Gemara brings a pasuk that we mentioned, that we remember the fish that we used to eat in Egypt for free, and the pasuk there continues, and also we had esakishuim, we had cucumbers, vesavatichim, we had melons, and the pasuk continues, we had leek, and onions, and garlic, and we missed this all. So what does this mean? So Rabbi Rabasi, Chanama once says that interesting was that Tom kalaminim tami b'man. The taste of any species in the world that you wanted to taste, you could taste in the man. But tam chamesh min halalu, but the taste of these 5 things that the pasuk mentions, loy tomaboy, that they didn't taste. Now what's the reason? So Rashi actually tells us that these 5 things that we have beautiful pictures here is that they're harmful for pregnant and nursing women, as brought in the Sifri. A mashal that someone says to a woman, don't eat the garlic, don't eat the onion because of the child, it's going to be harmful for the child. So for some reason, the Jewish people also were not supposed to have the ability to have these tastes because of their harmful for nursing and pregnant women. Now, Charam Elon says a different interpretation. He says, Tam kolaminim tamanam amashim. Whenever they would taste something, not only did they taste its taste, they taste its. Anyone who knows anything about taste is that when you're eating something, there's many different layers and dimensions of when you're eating. There's not just the taste, but there's actually the substance, there's the consistency of the item. You know, people like crunchy things, Crunchy is not a taste. You have those kettle potato chips, right? Those deli, right? See, crunchy, that's mamosha. So by the man, they didn't have the taste. Taste is taste. Yeah, you could have that in Jelly Bellies. You could have a taste or whatever. But you want to have the actual biting into that steak. They had tam mamosha. A lot of time of mamosha. For some reason, these things, they had the taste of them, but they didn't have the substance. And that's why I mentioned that they said, oh, we missed the cucumber. Cucumber has a good crunch. I don't know, Mistam, if you go through, you'll figure out why these things, the mamosha, what was missing in the melon, the softness as your teeth, it gets submerged into the melon. But that's the two interpretations of what they didn't have with these five things. Continuing on the man, a pasuk in Shemai says that Vahu is the girsa, that the man was kizera gad lavin. It was white like coriander seed. So what does this mean? So Amr Ba'asi says that the truth is that zera hagad, the coriander seed, is not white, but it's round. So what the pasuk is essentially saying is like this: Ogul kegida. It was round like the coriander seed, but velovin k'margalis, it was white like a pearl. So when it says gad lavin, so the roundness was like the coriander, but the white was actually white like a pearl. And the Ger says Tarabanan, then the Brisa, not time hachim, a different interpretation. God is shadoim lazer pishtim begevayim. It was similar to a flaxseed in its capsule, which is also round, and that's what the shape was of the man. Others say that God, why was it called God? Because the man was similar to like Agadic teachings. Like many people have probably learned this stuff. It's like, it's like a shma kadash, right? Agadic teachings, it draws a person's heart like water, like the way water flows. That's how a person flows with Agadic teachings. That's why it was called God, that it drew a person's heart. It was geshmak. Another brayse said that the reason why it's called God is because Shemagid Lam Yisrael. Interesting, the man would tell the Jewish people, the word God is from Magid, if the paternity of the child, let's say a woman got widowed or divorced, so she would go from one husband to another husband. So although generally you have to wait 3 months, but as Taisa Shem brings, they didn't have to because they had the month to tell us the paternity of the child. So let's say a woman got widowed and then 2 weeks later she gets married to someone else, and then 9 months later, or 7 months later, 8 months later she has a child. So we don't know, is it 9 months from the first husband, or is it 7 months from the second husband? Because it says in the pasuk in Shemais, they would measure the omer, meaning it didn't make a difference if a person gathered a lot of man or a little man. He would always find omer l'gagoyos. No matter what it is, he would always find a certain amount for every single person in the family. Now, if they would find more in the first house, they know that obviously it was a 9-month baby from the first husband. If you would find more in the second house, then you knew it was obviously from the second husband. That's why it was called God, because in Magid would tell them the paternity of the child. Now, why was it called Lavan? It was God Lavan. Lavan is Shemal ben Avan essentially Yisrael, because it whitened the sins of the Jewish people. As Rashi explains, because they were worried that maybe the man's not going to come tomorrow, they would obviously be Meshabbat Liban Lamokim. They would serve God with fear because we're totally dependent on Hashem. Related, the Gemara says similarly. Tanya, we learned in the Bryce, Rabbi Yisrael, it says Kashem Shem Lo B'Yoy Magdam Yisrael. Just like the prophet would tell the Jewish people, Masha B'Chayin, Masha B'Stokim, what was in the cracks and what was in the crevices. So Kaf, so too Haman Magdam Yisrael, so too the man would tell the Jewish people, Masha B'Chayin, Masha B'Stokim, what's in the cracks and what's in the crevices. It's a household. So Shnaim Shabo Lifnei Moshe Ladin. So you have two people come to in front of Moshe Rabbeinu for a court case. Zelim, Abdik and Abdik, this one says, you stole my slave. The second says, what are you talking about? You sold it to me. So Moshe said, Labai Kimishput. Tomorrow morning is judgment time. Okay? The next day they come back to court. If they found the oimer, that amount of money for that slave in the house of the first master, obviously this guy stole him, because that's why the money is falling by the first master. If they found the oimer, that amount of the money in the second master's house, obviously nobody told them. So the man, again, was telling the Jewish people what the halacha was. And similarly, a man and woman come in front of the Moshe Rabbeinu for Shulam Bayis, they come to Moshe for a court case. Zelimer, he says, he saw for life. She was unfaithful towards me. And she says, no, he was unfaithful towards me. And she's claiming her ksuba. She wants to say, I want out. And he's like, I want out. The question is, who's right? So Moshe Rabbeinu said to him, tomorrow morning is the judgment. Lamach, the next day. And then if they find Harman in her husband's house, obviously he's right, she belongs there, and she did something wrong. And let's say you find her in her father's house, obviously she belongs over there, and he did something wrong, and then she gets her ksuba. So interesting how the man would, like we said, was called God loving because it was magid, and we saw would tell them what actually the halachas were in certain situations. Continuing on the theme about the man, we have different psukim regarding how the Jewish people received the man. It says in the pasuk in Midbar, that when the man would come down onto the camp at nighttime, so Yerid Haman Olav. So when the dew would settle on the camp, the dew comes on during the nighttime. When it would settle on the machna. So, but again, it says ala machna, which means it was in the camp of the Jewish people. So Yerid Haman Olav. So the man would fall on top of the dew. So you see, it came in the machna. Now, there's another pasuk in Shemais that says v'yatzu amaloktu. The people would have to go out and gather. It sounds like they would have to go out of the machna to go and get the man. Now, except there's a third pasuk in the middle that says shatu amaloktu, which shatu sounds like they would have to wander, have to go very far away to gather the man. So haketza. So how so? So the Gemara says there's three types of categories of people. Tzadikim, the righteous, yared al pesach beitehem. It would fall right there by the entry of their home. The Hamadiyah, right there at the entry doorstep. You just walk outside and the man was right there. Beinanim yatzavaloktu. The intermediate people, they had to go shtickle, vats, till they go to their shtibel. They had to go, walk, 10 blocks, walk a mile till they had to get to the man. Sham shaturuloktu. The wicked, they had to go very far to get them man. So it's not a steer. Depends what type of person. Similarly, we have another three psukim about the man. See, it says in the pasuk that the man was called lechem, it was called bread, which sounds like it was baked. Uksiv, on the other hand, it's called ugos, which are doughs. Sounds like before it was baked. Uksiv, then there's another pasuk that told them they would grind it. Sounds like it was like in the kernels. Okay, it's a house, so yeah, it depends. Tzadikim, the righteous, lechem, it comes as bread. It's already hot and piping. Beinanim, ugos, the intermediate people came as dough. Rishon, talking about the wicked had to go ahead and grind it, make it into flour, into dough, and then bake it and make bread. Again, depending on what your level of righteousness, these are all the lessons of the man, that if you're there with God every step of the way, you're going to get your panos, you're going to get it right there. If not, it's going to have to be a little more. If not, it's going to be afil anochna. Now, the Gemara continues, like we mentioned in the pasuk, that this talks about grinding, but the Gemara goes a different drasha with these words. It says, or what's crushed in the mortar. So what does that come to teach? I'm going to be here and meet him some sort of chamin. This is Malamas come to teach. That what came down together with the man was tachshiti nasha, were women's adornments. Meaning, which type of adornments? What type of cosmetics? Is davar shenidach b'meducha. Something that's crushed in the mortar, which are besamim, certain spices which they crush, which the women would adorn themselves so that they have a pleasant aroma for their husbands. And see how important that was, that actually came down with the man. The stomach has something to do with panusa. We know the vab is bachem by the man. So it's bring panusa. So the mit the month can come in, the I don't know names of perfumes, but whatever it is, some type of L'Oreal or who knows. Chanel. I just remember what my mother had. I don't remember any more than that. So, but that came down with the man. Now, also it says in the pasuk, "Uvishlu b'apar," that was cooked in a pot. What does that come to? He told me, says Malamed, his teachers, "She'elam Yisrael imaman," that what came down for the Jewish people with the man was tziki kedera, were these spices that would give a sweet and aromatic taste to the dishes. Interesting that was also part of the coming down, especially those spices. Had to come down with the man. Pasuk says in Shemais, continue on the man. It says a related pasuk. It says regarding a related topic, and it talks about the nedava for the Mishkan, when they donate towards the Mishkan. It says they brought to Moshe Rabbeinu additional donations for the Mishkan, babaker every morning. What does it mean every single moment? What is that coming to allude to? So it says, from the thing that used to come down every single morning, which is the man, that's from the things that they came and they donated towards the Mishkan. What does that mean? They didn't bring the man. No, Malamas comes to teach that what came down to the Jewish people, with the man came down precious gems and pearls, and those are the things that they came and donated to Moshe Rabbeinu when they were building the Mishkan. Like it says, and the one says that they gathered it every single morning. So that comes to teach that those things about is what they went and donated towards the Mishkan. Now, some have the girsa here that the word is shenema, like it says in the pasuk, and it's coming to show and illustrate this point that this is what was donated. It says vanasiim, which we generally translate as the princes of every tribe. They brought the shohem stones, as we know, for the nedavos hamishkan. But Tanu the Rai said that the word nasiim means nasiim mamash. The word nasiim actually means clouds, and the clouds that drop down the man, which is like what the rain really is on some level, which is the heavenly abundance, was actually where the precious gems came from. And so to Bechina says the pasuk Mishlei, Nesiim v'ruach, clouds and wind, the geshem ayin, and there's no rain. So you see the word nasi actually refers to clouds. So this that the Nesiim brought the Avnei Shayim, it means the clouds brought the Avnei Shayim because it was what came down these precious gems with the man every single morning. Now going back, continuing on the theme of the man, it says that the taste of the man was kitam l'shad hashaman, was like the taste of dough that's kneaded with oil. So Amr Bavoi says, but the word l'shad also could mean from shadayim, which are breasts. So mashad says just like this breast, tinik toyim bo kamatamim, the infant tastes all types of taste with the baby milk, because the baby tastes whatever the mother ate. So afaman, so to the man, as long as the Jewish people were eating it, might seem but come a time they were able to taste so many tastes. Again, kiviyachol, whatever came from the Rabbi Shloimy, that's what you could taste, just like how the shadayim is for the tinnik. Or you can have another interpretation. It means the shade mamish means literally for shade, meaning for a demon. What is that? Ma shades that just like a demon, misapach lekam changes many colors. Afaman misapach lekam tam. So the man was able to change for many different tastes. Now the pasuk says in Shemais, Moshe Rabbeinu said, when God gives you in the evening meat to eat, and bread in the morning to be satiated. So why was he saying regarding meat in the evening and bread in the morning? So we learned in the Brayz name Rishon Karcho that because regarding meat that they had asked inappropriately. What does that mean? Because when they were asking for meat, it was from a full stomach. Because, as Rashi tells us, they had mikna rav. They had many flocks. They had much cattle. But they're asking, we need meat. So that was an inappropriate request. So nilam shloi kaigin. So it was given to them inappropriately, which means to say, like Rashi says, as we continue in Beis, that the meat came down only in the evening time, which is a time that you don't really have that much time to prepare it for the meal. You make a goyis sida, you're preparing it ready from 11 o'clock already for the barbecue at 5 o'clock, you need a lot of time. At 8 o'clock, you come back from going like, what is this? How are we supposed to prepare? So that's again because they asked inappropriately, therefore they got it inappropriately. And therefore that says they got it at nighttime. In contrast, lechem, but bread that they asked appropriately because you can't live without bread. Bread is you need the grains to survive. So nilam kahagin. So if it was given them appropriately, I mean they got it in the morning time, which gives them time to prepare what it is that they're going to make. Now moreover says the Gemara, from there, the Torah teach you appropriate conduct. That but at the end of the day, it says they would eat the meat at nighttime and they had the bread in the morning time. You don't eat breakfast, you don't wake up and you still don't eat a hamburger for breakfast. Very few people in the world do such things. But eat meat at nighttime, that you see from the pasuk. Now something Mahakli said, Baba says, hi man, this Lisudasa says, whoever has a meal, should eat all during the daytime. Why you tell me that you should eat the steaks at nighttime? No, it says what we meant to say was like daytime, meaning from the light of the torch, you should have some lights. That's what it means to say, but it doesn't mean by daytime, it should be at nighttime, but just to be like daytime. Now, interesting, for the nutritionists, they would probably enjoy this next Gemara. Originally, the Jewish people were like hens, like chickens. They would peck at the garbage dumps, meaning they would just eat. That's our chickens. They don't have meals. They just peck. So they tell you have small little snacks throughout the days. That's how they would eat. They wouldn't have meals. Who made up this whole idea? Breakfast, lunch, and supper. Why do we have to sit down and eat a meal? Right? Today's time, very few people have meals. In Hilchos Sukkah, they're always busy. A Danish with a kava, every roof gets up and says, Heinz, showing a Danish, showing a breakfast, or showing the, right? No one eats anymore. Everyone's on the run, everyone's on the go. But Moshe Rabbeinu, he was the one who made this thing about Boik of Erev. Morning, he says it in the pasuk. Breakfast, you had bread. In the evening, you had meat. And that was Moshe Rabbeinu instituted this idea about sitting down and be kaveh suda and not just pecking at small little snacks throughout the day. Now, continuing on this idea that we said that when they came for the meat, they had asked it inappropriately. So the pasuk tells us in Bamidbar that Habasar idenu bein shinehem. Hashem gave them meat. He gave them slav, but He gave them a patch with that too. Said, you want this? You can get the super snacks. Keep ahead. It's like, right? It says the meat was still between their teeth, and they didn't even finish. The anger of God flared up against them, and He gave them a makar rabba ma'id. Now the problem is, there's another pasuk that says ad chodesh yamim, that they only died after a month's time. So how so? Was it immediate or was it a month delay? So Beinim la'altamesu. So the intermediate people, obviously tzaddikim are not mentioned over here because they didn't sin in this request for meat. But the Beinim, the intermediate type of people, la'altamesu, they died right away. And that's what this pasuk is saying in the first pasuk. Risham, it's starting the wicked. We're going to stretch it out a little bit over here. It went over a period of a month's time. Now continue on that theme over there regarding this, which, as the pasuk says in the Midbar, that the people got up all that day and all that nighttime and the whole following day, and they gathered this slav because Hashem said, "Yeah, you want meat?" So He gave them this quail, this bird, this slav, that even the ones who got the least amount had piles and piles of them. And it says v'yishtachu, and it was spread out for them, a spread all around the camp. Now Amar Shlakish, he says, "Al tikra v'yishtachu." Don't read it that it was spread out. El v'yishchatu. They're added that they slaughtered. Malamed, this comes to teach you that the enemy, so to speak, again that's a euphemism, means the Jewish people, but the wicked ones, they were actually liable for that they should be slaughtered because again of the inappropriateness of the complaints that they were saying for the request of the meat. Now it says over there that it was spread out a shetayach. So what does this mean? So Tanush Mindir B'Shuman Karchu says Al Tikar Shetayach El Shachat. Here also he makes the same drasha. They don't read it spread out, the quail all over the camp, but el shachim. What does that mean? And the Girsa takes out im haman. It's not really necessarily with the man, but that what came down to the Jewish people was dove and shatan and shchita, something that needed to be slaughtered, which as Rashi says, it comes to teach us that the slav was a type that requires shchita, which Hashem is all busy. Do you see over here, shchita life and atayra? The big as it may, that's the drasha about saying that this bird had to be slaughtered. Now, Amar Rebbe, he says, what do you think from here is where you learn this up? But it's the pasuk until that says, that God, so to speak, rained down upon them like the earth meat, and the gear says yamim, and like the dust of the sand of the seas, was winged creatures, which were tiny with no brisa. That means, so we know that they had birds and meat sent to them. And the time in the Brez, remember he says, it says in the pasuk, "V'zavachta kasher tzivisicha." Pasuk says in Devarim that you're going to slaughter like I commanded you. Now the thing is, you don't find anywhere in the Torah the command of slaughtering, and there's also one of the proofs of the oral law, because if you just read the written law, you just read Torah Shabbat, it doesn't say anywhere when we kasher tzivisicha that's missing. It doesn't say anywhere the Hilchah Shchita. So the Lama is going to teach you, which we know from Torah Shabbat. Shenistava Moshe, that Moshe Rabbeinu was commanded, where it was given over to him the halachas of shchita orally, ala veshet regarding the esophagus, ala kana, and the trachea, which they both have to be slaughtered, and al roiv echad ba'if, the majority of one of these signs has to be cut by a bird. But the majority of both of them has to be slaughtered by an animal. Now, so then, wait a second. So if I already know that it has to be slaughtered from a pasuk in Chumash, and I know that it was birds from a different pasuk in Dilam, so what's this pasuk shetayach that was spread out come to teach? Oh, this comes to teach something else. Malam shir the mashtichim come to teach very simply that the slav had so many layers on the ground. That's a shatoyach, is a layer, that it was all spread out, layers upon layers on layers. There was so much of this bird to get. Now, moreover, continuing on the theme that we mentioned before regarding the different types of psukim of how they describe the man. So we have three different types of descriptions about the man. On the one hand, ksiv, it says lechem. The man is called bread. Like ksiv, we have another pasuk that calls it shemen, that it was oil. Ksiv dvash, we have another pasuk that says that it was honey. What was it, bread, honey, or oil? So Amr Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina says it actually depends on the person. Lina arim, for the youth, for the young ones, it was lechem. It was like bread. Because young children, they the ones who need the bread. Lizakanim shemen, for the elders, oil. That's, we always say that the wisdom is like shemen. Older people there have the oil. And the tanaikis, for the little children, for the little kids, it was davash. It was like honey, which is every person appropriately for what they were supposed to get. Another contradiction on some level, it says ksiv shlav. It says, the way it's written shlav. But the Korean and Slav, we read it with a sin, as if it's Slav. So what's the difference? So Amr B'Chanina says, Tzadikim oichem leisog b'shalv. The righteous is shlav. They eat it with tranquility. Risham oichem leisog, the wicked, they would eat the man, they ate the slav, but dimlim kisilvan. And it was like them to like thorns. In Aramaic, the silvan means thorns. So again, depending on the person, how it came to them. Now, Amr B'Chanan ben Ava, it says, there's four types of quail. The Elohim, and they are shichli, the kivli, ufasyuni, the slav. Now, malad the kuli shichli. The best of that is shichli. Kriyad the kuli slav, and the lowest, the most inferior is the slav. And vavi kitzipurti is as small as a tzipur, which is a very small bird. Umasvin lebetanura, and the custom of people is that they would roast the bird in an oven. And it's so fatty that it would swell and become so thick because of all the fat. It would fill up the whole oven. And they put it on 13 loaves of bread that are one on top of the other. And the bottom one, is not edible because of how much fat gets absorbed in it, and obviously how much the upper ones would be absorbed from that. And you can only eat in Elad Terevis, only like putting it into a pot of food, that's how fatty it would be from this love. Now the Gemara tells us how certain Amiram would have this, that Rabbi Huda Mishtakeach le Bei Dani. He actually found this love, he would find it amongst his barrels, where from Shemayim they had this love come to him. Now Rav Chizda, who actually, he was the father-in-law of Rava, and he was actually the teacher of Rava, Mishtakech le Beit Tzidi, he would find it amongst the wood storehouse. Now Rava, again his son-in-law and his student, his sharecropper would bring him every single day this law. One day he didn't come. My high, he says, what's going on? So he went up to the roof, and Shamali Nuka de Kama, he heard a child saying a pasuk in Chabakuk. Shamati, I heard something, but tirgaz, and my heart is trembling inside bitni in my stomach, which semantically, that's you feel the trembling in your stomach, in your gut. So Amar, so when Rabbi heard this pasuk being said, he said, oh Shmami, no, obviously we can infer from this that Nachnafshid Rav Chizda. The reason why I'm not getting this is because he always got it from his father-in-law. And must be Rav Chizda passed away. And the Bedil Rabbah, it was only in the merit of the master, meaning of his teacher, that Achal Talmida, that's why the student ate. And now that Rav Chizda passed away, therefore he's not getting this love anymore. Now, it says in the pasuk in Shemais, another contradiction regarding the man. It says that Vatal Shechvas Hatal, that the layer of dew would come and it would be on the surface of the midbar, a very thin layer, and it says, it says in the pasuk in Bamidbar earlier, it says that when the dew would go on the machna at nighttime, the man would go on it. So the problem is that the pasuk v'tal shechvas hatal, that it went on pnei midbar, when the towel would go up from the ground towards the sun. It sounds like that you would see on the face of the desert a dak mechuspa, says the pasuk. So obviously we learned that the dew was covering the man, until the time came that for the dew to go up towards the sun. As anyone that goes to camp, you always see the dew, right, going up. So which one is it? Is it that the dew is on top of the man, or as the other pasuk seems to indicate, that it says the Beredis Hatal that the dew went on the machna and the Yered Haman Olav that the man went on it. So which one was on top of which? So classic Gemara answer. Rabbi Shloimy says, well, Tamal Mal Tamal Mata. Actually, the dew was on top and the dew was on bottom. And it was like the man was in a box and it was contained, and it's actually one of the sources of why we cover the challah on Shabbos, where you have the tablecloth, and that's why it's actually good to have a tablecloth, because you want it to be covered on the bottom, a layer of dew, and you want it to be covered, which that's what the man is commemorated on Shabbos, that we have Lechem Mishnah, and therefore it's covered on the top, also together with the deck tichel, and that's why, not the deck tichel, that's the it says from the chasna, that maybe the Batchan said that, I don't know, but so that was, actually had both, actually was covered on the bottom and the top. Now, additionally, it describes the man as dak, thin, mechuspas. Now, a simple translation, mechuspas means that it was uncovered, meaning when the dew would go up, so then the man would be uncovered. But Amr Shlaka, she translates what mechuspas is an acronym of davar shenimuach al pisas hayad. So memches is moyach, which means dissolved, and pas means the palm. It's something that gets dissolved on the palm of the hand, which means to say that it was something that would dissolve, was something that's mechuspis, that's nutrikin, the compound of that word. He says actually a gematria. He says davar shenivla b'masayim va'arba mishmane v'amr, something that gets absorbed in the 248 limbs, which means to say that it wouldn't come out from the intestines. Your excretory system would not be functioning with the man. With the numerical value of mechuspis is 248, because it got absorbed in 248 limbs. Says the Gemara, what are you talking about? Mechuspis tuva. The gematria of mechuspis is more than 248. So Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak in the mechuspis, the way it's written is without a vav, and if you spell it out that mem ches samach pei samach, you come out to 248. Now, John learned the Brisa to continue regarding the man, a pasuk in Tehillim, which continues actually on the same theme of the previous interpretation. Lechem abirim achal esh, which simply translates as the mighty bread the man ate. Which the first man that translates as lechem shem lachas shas eichel, so the bread that the ministering angels eat. That's what the Jewish people had. That's the Rabbi Kiva. Now, when these words were said in front of Rabbi Shlomo, he said to them, go out and tell Akiva Teisa, Akiva, you made a mistake. Where you think the ministering angels eat bread? Like Rahama, but Moshe Rabbeinu already said in Devarim, when he went up to Shemayim, he says, Lechem lo echalti, I didn't eat bread, but my Lechem didn't drink water because Malachim don't eat. So it doesn't mean Lechem Abirim, the bread of the mighty ones, which refers to Malachim, that's what Achal Ish, that's what the man ate. What do you mean? That's not what the man is. So what does it mean lechem abirim? It means lechem shenivla b'masayim v'arba mishmane evarim. Abirim is like the word evarim. It's the bread that gets absorbed into the limbs. It gets totally assimilated into the person's mitochondria, and not to have anything going out as waste matter. Now, Manakayim, how do I fulfill the pasuk that says in Devarim that that you're going to have a shovel by your weapons? What's the point of a shovel, which the pasuk there is talking about, that you have to cover over your waste matter? Why would you have any waste matter to cover over if there was no excretory system? It says the Gemara, you're right, it's from the Goyim, Alamul from the Goyim, is that the merchants from the nations of the world would sell them. They would come by Allah, they came selling in the midbar, people came by. That's from what they ate from the merchants. The man didn't come out, but those other things that created all that waste matter. Lazim Partam, he says, no, even the things that the merchants of the nations of the world would sell them, man mafigan, the man would totally purge it. So, then went back to the question, then what is this that you're going to take a shovel to cover over the waste matter? Says the Gemara, after that they soured. When they complained about the man, they said, which what are we going to do? How could something come in and not go out? Oh, you're complaining, it doesn't work anymore. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Ani Amarti, I said, Yikam Lach Hashach. Then you're going to be like menacing angels that don't have to go to the bathroom. Now we're going to make you go 3 parsais, which is very, very far. Obviously, because there's many mil in the parsa, and this mil is more than a mile. So you can imagine how far they have to walk to use the lavatory. There's something that says it wasn't the midbar. It says V'yachna layardim, that they encamped by the Jordan. That's how, at one point, it was describing the camp was from Beis Yeshimis to Leibel Hashita. Now, Mamad Abba Chani says, so he says, I saw that place, and that was a distance of 3 parsi. That's how big the Jewish people took up space. Now, we're talking about the Brisa, so how does it tell us how far they had to walk to go to the bathroom? Kishenifnin, when the Jewish people would have to relieve himself, ain't nifnin lo lefnein, he couldn't relieve himself in front of the camp, and below the tzdein, neither to the sides of the camp. They didn't know which way the clouds were going. You know, which way the clouds are blowing. Literally by them, I'm going straight, then you can't have the waist matter there. And maybe we're going to the sides. But El Lachreim rather than to relieve themselves in back of the camp, because they knew they're not going backwards. So whoever was all the way in the front of the camp, he had to go to the other end of the camp, right? Your son's watching from camp right now. Imagine how big Camp Agud is, right? He's got to go one end of the camp. You know, you go out to the baseball fields. You got to go to the bathroom. Oh, you got to go down the hill. You got to go all the way. You have to go to the other end of the camp and relieve themselves. And that means to say that was 3 parsas someone would have to walk. That was the punishment. Hashem says, I said this, and you guys are complaining. That's when it stopped working. Now, they said to the Jewish people said, now our souls are dried up. We can't take this anymore. Because they said, this one is going to ultimately burst in the intestines. Is there ever such a thing that you could have a person born from a woman that only takes in, he puts food into the digestive system, but doesn't come out of the excretory system? And that's what they were saying, that how could we manage this month? Another version, when this was said over in front of Bishmal, we said to them, meaning a different version of what we said before, don't say lechem abirim, the bread of the mighty ones, rather the bread of the limbs, which for something that gets absorbed in 248 limbs. So what do I fulfill? That you have to have a shovel by your weapons to go ahead and cover the waste matter. It's that they import, they had things that came from overseas. Those are the things that caused them to have waste matter. Another explanation in that pasuk, Davar Acha, when it says lechem abirim achal ish, the bread of the lechem abirim, which again refers to the man, achal ish, the man ate. Who is that referring to? It's a continuum of Ein Vav and Aleph. Zeh Yeshua. This refers to Yeshua ben Nun, who he had gone with Moshe Rabbeinu up until the boundaries of the mountain, like it says in Shemais Chavdal, that Moshe went with his Meshudas Yeshua, and they went up to Har Sinai, and Yeshua waited for Moshe Rabbeinu there 40 days, like it says, and Yeshua heard all while he was going up in the camp. Obviously, he wasn't there with them. And it was there that shiur le'man keneged kol Yisrael. He had the lechem abirim, achal ish, Yeshua, who's called Ish, he had the lechem abirim, he had the equivalent of the amount of money that all the Jewish people had, he had by the foot of the mountain. How do we know it refers to Yeshua ben Nun? Because Ksiv achal ish says over here, the Ish ate it. Ksiv also says over there, Kach l'chaz Yeshua ben Nun, Ish asher b'ach bai, take Yeshua ben Nun, the man that has a spirit in him. So that's how we know it refers to Yeshua ben Nun. Says the Gemara, maybe it refers to Moshe. It says the pasuk, "V'ish Moshe on the moed." The man Moshe was very humble. Says the Gemara, no, done ish mi ish. We learn that where it says ish, and the word ish, then done ish miva ha ish, because that's not as precise as what it says Yeshua ben Nun, and therefore that's what the pasuk is referring to. It's referring to Yeshua ben Nun having the amount of man that all the Jews would have. Thank you for anything.